Hey everyone. I hope you guys are doing well. I gotta tell you guys, it's Sunday and I'm making my little video for the week and I'm just bummed. I'm really sad that I'm not gonna see you guys in person again, and I'm just kind of in a funk, which I'm sure some of you guys are too. So I just want to start this little message by telling you guys that, again, I miss you. I know this kind of just sucks, and that we will just keep plugging away, and that hopefully summer will be here soon. And I just can't wait to see you guys next year. I will be in the same classroom, and you guys just have to come by and see me at the start of next year, since I won't physically see you guys to say goodbye, which makes me really sad. But I'm gonna keep going with my little videos here just to try to help you guys get through really just kind of the academic route of this unit. I'll be honest with you guys, obviously, because we're not having, our standardized test this year, and because I don't know if you heard for sure or not, but you will also not be having a final exam in this class. Both of those things were ruled out by the state of Florida and by Brevard County. So as far as academic rigor goes for the rest of this school year, you guys know I'm going to keep challenging you, because you're still going to have to take the FSA next year. And, I still have a job to make sure that I've, done everything I can to really make sure you guys are prepared for your 10th grade year. So we're going to have a few more weeks of, kind of more intense academic focus, but then I do promise you guys, like I normally would do in class, those last 2 weeks I try to make a little more lighthearted and fun. And you guys know we were planning on watching a movie in class anyways, so that took about a week of time anyway. So I'm going to try to do some fun stuff with you guys towards the end to still kind of keep that end of year going. But for now, we've got about 3 more weeks that we're going to just plug away with this novel night and with this theme of survivors, and we'll just keep going. Okay, but please guys, if you need anything at all, or if you have any questions, or if you just want to chat, feel free to reach out to me over email, or if you just really need a phone call, I'm happy to call you and check in as well. Just let me know. Okay guys? All right, so we're about to start week 4. And week 4 is going to look pretty comparable to this past week. As week 4 starts tomorrow, or today if you're watching this on Monday, you are going to be doing 2 things total this week. So the first thing that you guys are going to be doing is a very short vocabulary activity. You guys know we normally would have been coming back to school and finishing our normal vocab units that we've been doing, and since that's kind of been on hold just because of it being too much during this time, I want us to still kind of incorporate some vocabulary within this novel. And so what you'll see under that night survival unit folder is that there is a Word document called Night Chapter 4 Vocabulary Activity. And what you're going to do is basically just complete a little chart that I have for you there, where you're going to look up the definitions of several words that you would find while reading Chapter 4. And then you're going to use those words in your own unique individual sentence. Guys, please do your very best not to copy anything off the internet, because I gotta be honest with you, you know me, I've already gone to the most common sites, Google, dictionary.com, and one other one, and written down what the sentences are on those sites. So if they're too similar to anything online, I will unfortunately know. So just challenge yourself. The absolute worst thing that could happen is that you misuse it. But you look at the part of speech when you look up those words, look up any multiple definitions, and look up sample sentences and use those to help you, okay? So you guys are going to do a little vocab activity this week. Submit that into me either on Focus, Google Docs, you can share it with me, or just email it to me. Okay, so that's your first assignment for this week. Your second assignment for this week is going to be a second night quiz, and it's going to be on chapters 4 and 5, just those 2 chapters. And the quiz is going to be really, really similar to the one that you guys have taken this past week on chapters 1 through 3. It's going to be in the form of a Google form where you will fill out your name and email and all that good stuff, and then write directly on the form and submit it to me, and it gets pushed back to me in my Google form format. And then once I grade it, I can email back and release you your answers and your scores. Now, what I'm gonna go over in a minute here is the right answers to mostly the short answer questions, because you guys can see the right answers once I push your results back to you for the multiple choice questions. So I'm mostly gonna take a couple minutes in just a moment here to go over night quiz number 1. Okay, the last thing I'm going to tell you guys is that looking at most of the scores at this point in time on Sunday, and now mind you, a couple of you were waiting until the weekend, and I haven't graded any over the weekend, but up until now I've graded, I think it was 55 total quizzes through Friday. And they're overall really good. They're overall really good. The number one thing I'm seeing is that it looks like people are either A, rushing, or B, kind of getting confused with the wording of questions. And if you guys remember, I did not tell you this last week because I kind of wanted to gauge where you were at, but all of my reading check quizzes go in chronological order, and that is going to be the same for this next quiz coming up. Chapters 4 and 5, that will go in chronological order, so use that to help you. Another thing I told you guys during my video last week is that because of this unique nature of you guys taking these quizzes online with very much a good chance of you having the book open in front of you, I'm making these questions difficult. Guys, these are not supposed to be really simple questions that you can just quick flip the book open and find a one-word answer and then boom, you're in. These are critical thinking based questions where you guys have got to put a little thought and energy into them. And so know that going in, that if you were disappointed in your score after I go over them, the right answers with you here from the first quiz, guys, I'm purposefully making these more challenging since I know you're probably treating them as open book with your book in front of you. And there's no way of me monitoring that, obviously. So it is what it is. So just keep that in mind going into week 2, and if you have any questions, let me know. Remember, and I put this in my written instructions as well, the quiz is set up as a quiz within Google Forms. So what that means is you can only access it once. You open the quiz and you are locked in, you gotta finish. There is no time limit, so once you're in, you're committed. Just sit down, bring a water, bring a snack, and just knock it out. Because once you're in, you cannot leave the quiz and go back in. The reason I did that is because would I normally let you see a test before taking it in person? I think you guys obviously know the answer to that. I wouldn't be like, hey, here's your test, and then go take, a couple days to look up the answers and then come back. You gotta have some kind of resemblance to that quiz quality, and that's it. So once you're in, you're in. Don't just click open thinking you could see the questions, see how long it is. I've already told you all of that. It's about half multiple choice, half short answer, and you're going to have 10 total questions, 40 points total. Okay, so if you guys have any questions for me on the quiz going into this week, let me know. I am posting this video Monday morning, and I will be posting the quiz to night quiz number 2 link Monday morning as well. Okay. All right, I'm gonna go over, hopefully fairly quickly. This is my key here to night quiz number 1, chapters 1 through 3. So this is the quiz you guys took last week. So if you want to keep listening, this is what you have for a review from me, okay? Number 1 said, who was Moshe the beetle? And most of you got this right. This was about, I'd say 97% of you got this right, that Moshe, and Moshe is kind of a common Hebrew name. So almost like if you were in biblical times, the name Moses, this is kind of the Yiddish Hebrew comparison to that. So it was a fairly common name. So that's why the beetle, is incorporated with that as well, to kind of identify him. So he was B, a poor foreign Jew. And we know that because number 2, what happened to him that caused him a great change. Because he was foreign, he was one of the first Jews to be expelled, meaning he was one of the first people to be removed from his home and sent to a work camp environment where he was forced to dig trenches, dig graves of other foreign Jews. he was deported there, saw just the horrid acts of the Nazi soldiers and what they had planned for the Jews well in advance of any other Jews, and he almost died, but he managed to get away and returned. And when he returned, he tried to warn everyone in his community. So again, I would say that most of you did really well with answering numbers 1 and 2. If you had any points off for number 2, it was maybe just that you didn't give me quite enough. Remember, guys, that, I'm still an English teacher. I'm still looking. If I ask for a short answer, give me a little bit more there, because if you had any points off for number 2, it's maybe just because you did not include enough about his story, or several of you did not mention that he survived, which is a big deal. Some of you just said he was deported and expelled to a camp early, but the fact that he survived and made it home to try to warn people was a huge part to the opening of the book and to who he was. All right, number 3 said, where did Ellie and his family first travel to after being forced to leave their family home? So where did they first go once they were officially kicked out of their house? If you guys remember, he says that his home just so happened to be in the first larger ghetto. So he did not have to leave his house right away, which was kind of the one small blessing they had. But then when he did have to leave their house, he was sent to the smaller ghetto. Okay, so he went from his house to the smaller ghetto out of his house. Number 4, on what day of the week was Ellie's family expelled? He was expelled on Saturday, okay? They were expelled on Saturday. Guys, the key word here is expel. I want you guys to think about how we use that word in our society today. Most of you would probably be associating it with being expelled from school. And if you are expelled from school, you are gone. You are not coming back. You're out of there. So when they are expelled, they are not coming back to their home. They are not close by to their home. They are leaving forever and not returning. So that was what I mean when I say some of these questions are going to be a little bit more tricky, because you guys really had to think about what that was asking you. So Saturday was the day that they were expelled. Then I asked you what the significance of that day was. And Saturday, much like how Sunday is the day where, say, Christians might go to church and it's considered a Sabbath day in the Christian faith, Saturday is the Sabbath day for the Jewish faith. And so it was very strategically done by the Nazi soldiers to take them away from their homes forever and to basically introduce them to the worst thing imaginable on the day that is supposed to be their holy day and their Sabbath day. Think about, guys, maybe some of the things prior to this whole quarantine. Think about some of the things that maybe you looked forward to on Sunday. There's like a whole phrase, Sunday fun day, and how you might look forward to going to the beach or going, just resting in any way on Sundays and kind of taking it easy. That was how their Saturday was. It was their day of rest, their Sabbath day, their holy day. And so to take them completely out of their home forever was done very purposefully and very maliciously, and just kind of makes your skin crawl thinking about the thought that went into that. The next question was, how were the Jews moved out of Siget? So remember, Siget is his actual home. So some of you, again, got confused about just them going from his home to the smaller ghetto in which they walked. The question, though, is asking you how they left Siget, how they left his town as a whole. And how they left his town as a whole was by cattle car. So some of you kind of accidentally slipped up here and put passenger train, but Ellie and his family, as I'm sure you guys know, did not have their own individual bucket seats with seat belts and a window view. That is a passenger train made for passengers. They were very strategically shoved into a cattle car that was designed for cattle. So cattle car is the answer to how they were moved out of Siget, how when he left his home forever, he was transported to the camp. All right, next one. Why did the Hungarian lieutenant move among the prisoners with a basket? Most of you got this one spot on. He was collecting valuables, that anything that was of value that he could use, they could sell. They were taking away from the Jews. Number 7, I believe we're at now. Explain in detail who Madame Schrachter was, excuse me, and why she was so upset. So Madame Schrachter, again, most of you did really well on this and got full credit. The few of you that you might see, I don't think anybody full on got this wrong. If anything, it would have just been -1 or 2 points. So the key here, guys, is that there are technically 2 questions here. So it was 2 points each. So if you are missing 2 points, it's probably because you did not fully answer one part of the question. So the first question is, who is she? So she was a Jewish woman that lived in and around Siget with Eli and his family. She frequented Eli's house. They were fairly close. Everyone knew her. She was kind of a community figure. You know, everyone just knew who she was. She was a woman in her 50s, so kind of some of you commented on that as well. And she was a family woman. She had a really close family. She was also the woman who saw fire on the train, and I'll come back to that in a minute. Question number 2, why was she so upset? She was so upset because she had gotten separated from the rest of her family. She had one son with her on the train, and she was separated from 2 of her sons and her husband. They somehow ended up on a train transported before her and her other son, and they got separated in the crowd. And so she was so upset and so distraught because she was looking for them and they were lost, and she knew that there was a very good chance she would probably never see them again. And even just that time on the cattle car together would have been a time to say goodbye, and she couldn't find them. So she was absolutely distraught, and some even called her crazy on the train because she was the woman that kept yelling fire, that she was just so distraught and so emotionally drained that they even said they had to gag her just to get her to stop yelling because it was so disturbing. And it was a thought and an image that stayed with Eli this whole time, that when he wrote this as an adult, he still could not get that noise that she was making, how she was yelling, out of his head. So if you did not say that she was the woman that was screaming fire, that would have gotten you 2 points off, because that was so significant. Because we know that later, the fire in which she was screaming about, he later calls her almost like she could see the future, because she clearly was referencing the smoke from the crematorium when they arrive at the camp itself, and when they were immediately sending some people to their death, that's what she was seeing. So he almost calls her a prophet. In fact, I think he does call her a prophet in one of his interviews that he does later on, where, you know, people thought she was crazy, but there was fire, there was smoke, and they were burning people alive to kill them. And so that was something that stuck out to him so greatly that that needed to be included there. Why didn't Eli join his father in reciting the Kaddish? This was a prayer that was usually recited at the time of death, and many were starting to recite this, obviously knowing that they could die. Answers were all over the place with this, guys, and it's not necessarily a bad thing, but there was one very specific line that I was looking for, and that is Eli comes right out and says that he was angry with God, that he was spiteful and mad, and the last thing he wanted to do in that moment, even if he was headed to his death, was to honor God by praying to him, because he was mad at him, and he was so frustrated at the fact that this could happen that he didn't see the point. So the emotion that really should be standing out to you is that anger and that frustration that he has in that moment. Some of you said that he didn't think he was going to die, and that's just unfortunately not accurate. He wasn't, you know, he hoped he wouldn't, of course, but he had no idea what was going to happen with any of his family members, for that matter. And so he did not want to join in because he was bitter and angry. Okay, so depending on the exact wording for your answer for that, I might have just taken 1 point off or 2 points off. If you have questions for me on your specific wording, just like in class, feel free to email me. Okay, and last but not least, this is kind of a trick question if you maybe just rushed this one in reading the answers. How did Eli become A-7713? I'm sure you guys have unfortunately heard from any past Holocaust study that obviously the Jewish prisoners were given tattoos to kind of identify them, and that part of the just terrible, degrading process when they arrived at these camps was stripping them of their name and referencing them as these numbers, and so that it would stay with them forever. So Ellie had that tattoo on his arm still, up until the day that he had died. And to make it even worse, because if you had someone that you just hated, because many of you just kind of, I think, knee-jerk reaction went with the German soldiers that put the tattoo there, and that unfortunately is not true, because the German soldiers, you know, that would have been an easy process to endure, because they hated him. But to make it even worse on them, they had veteran soldiers that had been at the camp longer than the newbies, do it. So could you imagine feeling like you were taking away the name of someone that you maybe even knew, or someone that shares the same beliefs as you, someone that you know is about to go through the same process? So they, again, just the mind games here, guys, it was awful. Just the way that you could imagine that they put thought into making sure, you know, something that was so terrible was even worse by having one of their own do it. So that was the answer to the last question, that he was tattooed with needles by a veteran prisoner. Okay. All right, guys, so that is my quick review for you on night quiz number 1, chapters 1 through 3. If you have any questions for me, let me know. And then don't forget, last but not least, you guys also have a no red ink assignment that opens today. You just have 2 more no red ink assignments, 2 more total. So you guys can do it. Just don't put it off too long. You've got 2 weeks for this new one that is now open. This one is on verb tenses. Okay, so that opens today, Monday, and then you have 2 weeks to be working on that. So vocab activity, quiz 2, and no red ink is open, but you've got 2 weeks. And let me know if you guys have any and all questions going into week 4. All right, miss you guys. Bye.